Close your eyes and reconstruct a shoreline in your mind's eye. The time is 180 million years ago. The sand beneath your boots radiates a heat that feels ancient, the air thick with a humidity that clings to your skin, like a physical weight. Behind you, forests of conifers and cycads stretch toward mountain ranges that no longer exist in our geography, their silhouettes jagged against a sky that has never known the silhouette of a bird. In the water before you, something surfaces. It is a neck, as long as a utility pole, topped with a head no larger than that of a horse. It belongs to a creature that displaces as much water as a pod of whales, moving through the shallows with a hydrostatic grace impossible for something of such immense mass. When it turns its small dark eye towards you, you are witnessing an organism that your species will not possess the vocabulary to describe until the bones of this animal have been mineralized for eons. This is the Jurassic. To comprehend the sheer scale of this era, we must abandon our human perception of time. All of recorded human history, from the first clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the digital device you are holding now, fits comfortably into the last 10,000 years. The Jurassic period spanned 56 million years. It was an age 5,600 times longer than the entirety of human civilization. It was a temporal ocean so vast that species arose, conquered continents, and vanished into extinction without ever overlapping with the dinosaurs that would come millions of years later. But this epic of giants did not begin with triumph. It began with an apocalypse. The boundary between the Triassic and Jurassic periods, 201 million years ago, is a scar in the geological record, marked by one of the most violent extinction events in planetary history. Deep beneath the supercontinent of Pangaea, the Earth's mantle began to churn. A massive upwelling of thermal energy pushed against the crust, tearing the supercontinent apart along a seam that would eventually become the Atlantic Ocean. This tectonic trauma triggered the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, or CAMP, an episode of volcanism so catastrophic it defies modern comparison. This was not a singular eruption, it was a planetary hemorrhage. Over roughly 600,000 years, fissures in the crust vomited nearly 6 million cubic kilometers of basaltic lava. Enough to bury the entire continental United States under a layer of molten rock nearly a quarter-mile thick. However, lava was not the primary executioner. The true killer was atmospheric chemistry. The eruptions released approximately 100,000 gigatons of carbon dioxide, 50 times the amount humanity has emitted since the Industrial Revolution, triggering a hyperthermal runaway greenhouse effect. Global temperatures spiked by over 10 degrees Celsius. Simultaneously, sulfur dioxide aerosols choked the stratosphere, creating volcanic winters that whipsawed the planet between freezing darkness and baking heat. The oceans acidified, dissolving the calcium carbonate shells of marine life and collapsing the food web from the bottom up. In this chaos, the dominant terrestrial rulers of the Triassic, the Pseudosuchians, massive crocodile-line archosaurs, were obliterated. 76% of all species on Earth were extinguished. Nature, however, abhors a vacuum. The post-apocalyptic world of the early Jurassic was empty, silent, and waiting. Into this ecological void stepped the dinosaurs. Previously marginal creatures, small and opportunistic, they possessed a specific set of physiological traits that allowed them to survive the catastrophe where others failed. As the planet stabilized, these survivors began an evolutionary radiation unlike anything seen before or since. They did not just fill existing niches, they expanded the boundaries of biological possibility. This brings us to the defining question of the Jurassic. How did the sauropods, the long-necked titans, defy the laws of physics to become the largest land animals in history? The answer lies in biological engineering. To build a creature that weighs 70 tons and walks on land, evolution had to solve a critical problem: gravity. As an animal grows, its volume and mass increase cubically, while the strength of its bones and muscles only increases squarely. A simple scaling up of a lizard would result in a creature that collapses under its own weight. The sauropods solved this through a suite of radical adaptations, starting with their respiratory system. Sauropods inherited a respiratory architecture from their ancestors that is vastly superior to the mammalian system you possess. Mammals breathe tidally. Air goes in, air goes out, mixing fresh oxygen with stale exhaust in a relatively inefficient cycle. Sauropods, like modern birds, utilized a unidirectional flow system. They possessed rigid lungs connected to a series of air sacs extending throughout their body cavity. When a sauropod inhaled, fresh air rushed into the rear air sacs. When it exhaled, that fresh air moved into the lungs, while the spent air was pushed out. This meant that the lungs were constantly bathed in oxygen-rich air, both during inhalation and exhalation. This hyper-efficient extraction of oxygen allowed them to fuel a massive metabolism without the need for an impossibly large heart or lungs. This respiratory system drove a second, equally critical innovation: skeletal pneumaticity. The air sacs did not just sit in the soft tissue, they invaded the bone itself. If you were to cross-section the vertebrae of a brachiosaurus, you would not find solid bone. You would find a honeycomb structure, a complex lattice of struts and hollows filled with air. This is the same engineering principle used in modern aviation. By removing material where it is not structurally necessary, evolution reduced the weight of the skeleton by up to 60% without sacrificing strength. A 50-ton animal was not carrying a 50-ton skeleton. It was carrying a lightweight scaffold that allowed it to grow to sizes that would shatter a solid-boned mammal. Then there is the neck, an impossible cantilevered beam stretching up to 15 meters from the shoulders. In engineering terms, this structure creates immense torque. To manage this, sauropods utilized a system of cervical ribs and overlapping vertebrae, bound together by massive ligaments that acted like suspension cables. These ligaments allowed the animal to hold its neck horizontally or vertically with minimal muscular effort, essentially hanging the neck on tension rather than holding it up with brute strength. Feeding a machine of this magnitude presented another thermodynamic challenge. A modern elephant spends up to 16 hours a day chewing to extract nutrients from low-quality vegetation. Sauropods bypassed this constraint by abandoning mastication entirely. They did not chew. Their teeth were simple pegs or spatulas designed solely for stripping leaves from branches. The vegetation was swallowed whole, cascading down the long esophagus into a massive fermentation vat of a stomach. There, with the aid of gastroliths, swallowed stones that acted as a biological mill, and a microbiome of symbiotic bacteria, the plant matter was broken down over weeks. This gather and gulp strategy allowed them to intake calories at a rate impossible for a chewing animal, turning the entire forest canopy into fuel for their immense growth. By the Middle Jurassic, these biological innovations had matured. The world was no longer recovering, it was thriving. The climate had warmed and stabilized, creating a greenhouse Earth with no polar ice caps. Forests of conifers, ginkgos, and tree ferns covered the continents, providing the biomass necessary to sustain these titans. The sauropods had transitioned from survivors of the Triassic apocalypse to the undisputed architects of the ecosystem. They were not merely inhabitants of the Jurassic, they were geological forces, their herds reshaping forests, their migrations carving paths through continents. Their very existence a testament to the power of evolutionary adaptation in the face of extinction. But as the herbivores grew to mountainous proportions, the predators that hunted them were forced to evolve in kind, initiating an evolutionary arms race that would produce the most terrifying carnivores the world had ever seen. The age of the victim was over. The age of the monster was about to begin. Abundant vegetation inevitably creates abundant herbivores, and abundant herbivores summon the architects of their destruction. The Middle Jurassic world, with its limitless calorie production, became the stage for the most sophisticated experiment in predation the Earth had ever witnessed. The theropods, those bipedal carnivorous dinosaurs, were not merely mindless eating machines. They were the result of millions of years of evolutionary refinement, a lineage honing the art of the kill. While the sauropods relied on mass for immunity, the predators relied on precision, speed, and terrified physiological specialization. Enter Allosaurus *. In the late Jurassic of North America, this animal was the definitive apex predator. It was not the largest carnivore to ever walk the earth. That distinction belongs to later Cretaceous giants, but for its time, it was a biological masterpiece. An adult Allosaurus * measured nearly 9 meters in length and weighed up to 2 tons. It was the wolf of the Jurassic, but a wolf the size of a rhinoceros. Its skull, however, reveals a killing method that chills the blood of biomechanical researchers. The bite force of Allosaurus * was surprisingly modest compared to Tyrannosaurus *. Instead of crushing bone through brute force, The Allosaurus skull was reinforced to withstand immense vertical impact. Its jaws could open to a gape approaching 90 degrees, turning the entire head into a biological hatchet. The leading hypothesis suggests that Allosaurus did not bite and hold, it struck. It would slam its upper jaw down onto prey, with the force of its massive neck muscles driving serrated, backward-curving teeth into flesh like a pickaxe. This was a surgical strike designed to induce massive hemorrhage. It was a strategy of slash and wait, allowing the predator to inflict a fatal wound and then track the weakened victim until blood loss finished the job. But the herbivores were not passive victims in this arms race. Evolution provided countermeasures, and none were more visually arresting than Stegosaurus asterisk. Often caricatured as a slow-witted plotter due to its small brain cavity, Stegosaurus asterisk was, in reality, a biological tank. The iconic plates along its back likely served a dual function of thermoregulation and social display, flushing with blood to signal dominance or aggression. However, the business end of the animal was the tail. At the tip of the tail sat the thagomizer, a cluster of 4 massive spikes, each up to a meter long. This was not a display structure, it was a weapon of war. The tail was highly flexible, driven by powerful muscles that could swing those spikes with lethal velocity. We do not have to speculate about their effectiveness. We have the smoking gun, an Allosaurus vertebra found with a puncture wound that perfectly matches the geometry of a Stegosaurus spike. The bone had begun to heal, meaning the predator survived the encounter, but the fossil remains a snapshot of Jurassic violence, a moment when the hunter was nearly broken by the prey. While the land became a battlefield of armor and teeth, a different invasion was occurring in the oceans. The transition from land to sea is one of the most radical shifts in evolutionary history, requiring the complete re-engineering of the vertebrate body. By the Jurassic, marine reptiles had not only returned to the water, they had conquered it. The ichthyosaurs represented the pinnacle of convergent evolution. To move efficiently through water, nature demands a specific shape, and the ichthyosaurs arrived at a body plan strikingly similar to modern dolphins. Despite being reptiles, they birthed live young, severing their last tie to the land. But their most haunting feature was their eyes. Some species possessed eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest of any vertebrate in history. These were adaptations for the deep, lightless zones of the ocean, suggesting that ichthyosaurs were diving into the crushing blackness to hunt squid, navigating a world of eternal night hundreds of meters beneath the sunlit surface. Sharing these waters were the plesiosaurs, creatures that defy simple mechanical explanation. With bodies like barrels and 4 wing-like flippers, they flew underwater. Their long necks were not flexible snakes but stiffened probes, allowing them to snap at fish before their looming body silhouette could startle the prey. But the true terror of the Jurassic seas was the pliosaur. Imagine a predator with the body of a whale and the head of a crocodile. Pliosaurs were the apex predators of the marine realm, monsters like Pliosaurus and Liopleurodon . Their skulls could exceed 2 meters in length, packed with teeth that were not designed to slice, but to crush. These animals hunted other marine reptiles. If you were an ichthyosaur in the late Jurassic Ocean, you were not safe. There was always a larger shadow in the deep, a creature capable of biting a small vehicle in half, ruling a submerged kingdom where there was nowhere to hide. Yet, the conquest of the Jurassic was not limited to land and sea. The vertebrates were looking up. Flight is an energetic extravagance, a mode of locomotion so demanding that it has evolved only 4 times in the history of life. The pterosaurs were the first vertebrates to unlock this power. They were not dinosaurs, but cousins, distinct in their lineage and anatomy. A pterosaur wing is a marvel of biological engineering. Unlike a bird's wing, which is built of feathers, the pterosaur wing was a membrane of skin and muscle stretched from an elongated 4th finger to the ankle. This was not a passive kite. The membrane was embedded with actinofibrils, structural fibers that allowed the animal to change the shape and camber of the wing in mid-flight. They were masters of the air, ranging from sparrow-sized insectivores to soaring gliders. To power this flight, they required a high metabolism, meaning pterosaurs were almost certainly warm-blooded, their bodies covered in pycnofibers, a fur-like insulation that kept their internal engines running hot in the cool air currents. But the Jurassic sky held a secret that would eventually eclipse the pterosaurs. In the lagoons of Solnhofen, in what is now Germany, a quiet revolution was taking place. The fossil record here preserved something delicate, something that should have rotted away: a feather. In 1861, the discovery of Archaeopteryx shattered the scientific understanding of life. Here was an animal that possessed the teeth, long bony tail, and claws of a dinosaur, but the feathers and wings of a bird. It was a mosaic, a living bridge between two worlds. Archaeopteryx proves that birds were not a sudden creation, but the direct descendants of theropod dinosaurs. These early avian pioneers were not the graceful flyers of today. They were likely burst flyers, launching themselves from the ground or trees in clumsy, energetic flutters. They were small, vulnerable, and seemingly insignificant compared to the pterosaurs gliding above them, or the Allosaurus stalking below. Yet, they represented the future. While the pterosaurs would eventually vanish with the non-avian dinosaurs, the lineage of Archaeopteryx was securing its insurance policy against extinction. By the end of the Jurassic, the Earth was a fully colonized sphere of life. The deep oceans teemed with monsters, the forests shook with the footsteps of titans, and the air was filled with the screech of leathery wings and the first tentative songs of birds. Evolution had filled every available niche with a specialist. But this golden age of diversity was built on a shifting foundation. The continents were drifting, the climate was subtly turning, and the stage was being set for the final act of the Mesozoic. The Jurassic had built the ultimate biological machines, but the Cretaceous would test them to their breaking point. We have walked with titans and navigated seas patrolled by monsters, but to truly comprehend the Jurassic, we must consult the evidence itself, the physical archives where deep time is stored. The history of this era is not written in ink, but in stone, preserved in 3 exceptional geological libraries: the Morrison Formation of North America, the Solnhofen Limestone of Germany, and the Tendaguru Beds of Tanzania. These are not merely layers of sediment, they are windows into vanished worlds, each capturing a specific moment with a fidelity that defies the destructive forces of entropy. The Morrison Formation is a sprawling graveyard of giants, stretching across the American West. This semi-arid floodplain was the Serengeti of the Jurassic. It is here that we find the highest concentration of dinosaur fossils on the continent, a landscape where seasonal droughts forced desperate animals to congregate around shrinking waterholes. The fossil record here is uncompromising. We see catastrophic mass mortality events, jumbled assemblages of bone where entire herds died together, buried by flash floods or withered by dehydration. It is from these chaotic deposits that we reconstruct the lives of Diplodocus Apatosaurus and Camarasaurus. The sheer volume of sauropod biomass preserved in the Morrison confirms that these animals were not rare curiosities. They were the dominant life form, shaping the landscape through their feeding habits just as elephants shape the African savanna today. Half a world away, the Solnhofen limestone tells a different story. While the Morrison preserves the brute magnitude of terrestrial ecosystems, Solnhofen captures the delicate intricacy of a tropical archipelago. In these quiet hypersaline lagoons, anoxic conditions at the lake bottom prevented decay, preserving soft tissues that usually vanish. Here, we see the ghostly outlines of jellyfish, the intricate vein patterns of dragonfly wings, and the feather impressions of Archaeopteryx. Solnhofen is a reminder that the Jurassic was not just a world of mineralized bone, it was a world of flesh, skin, and feathers, a vibrant, colorful reality that is usually lost to time. Further south, the Tendaguru Beds of Tanzania offer a third perspective. This coastal environment where river deltas met the sea preserves a mixture of marine and terrestrial life. It is the home of Giraffatitan*, the African cousin of Brachiosaurus*, proving that the colossal body plan of the sauropods was a global phenomenon. The similarities between the faunas of North America and Africa reveal a world that was slowly breaking apart, but still connected, a supercontinent in the early stages of divorce. Yet, in the shadows of these giants, another group of animals was quietly perfecting a different strategy: the mammals. While the archosaurs claimed the sunlight, the mammals colonized the shadows. They were small, rarely larger than a squirrel, and mostly insectivorous. But do not mistake their small size for failure. In a world dominated by visual predators like Allosaurus*, Being small, nocturnal, and hidden was a survival superpower. These Jurassic mammals were the underdogs of the Mesozoic. But they were innovators. They evolved acute hearing, sensitive whiskers, and complex teeth capable of processing a variety of foods. Most importantly, they were warm-blooded, their high metabolism fueled by the protein-rich insect diet available in the dark. While the dinosaurs slept, the mammals scurried, hunted, and waited. They were playing the long game. This strategy of staying small and adaptable would eventually become the key to inheriting the Earth when the reign of the reptiles finally ended. As the Jurassic drew to a close around 145 million years ago, the world began to change again. This was not the violent volcanic rupture that started the period, but a subtle, creeping transformation. The continents continued their slow drift, widening the Atlantic and isolating populations. The climate, while still warm, began to shift, altering vegetation patterns. The iconic animals of the Jurassic, the Stegosaurus*, the specific lineages of long-necked giants, began to fade from the fossil record, replaced by new forms better adapted to the emerging Cretaceous world. The transition from the Jurassic to the Cretaceous is a blur in the geological record, a soft boundary where one era bleeds into the next. There was no single moment when the Jurassic ended. It was a gradual passing of the torch. The dominance of the sauropods would give way to the rise of the titanosaurs and the diverse ornithopods. The primitive theropods would evolve into the tyrants and raptors that haunt our nightmares. The first flowering plants, the angiosperms, were preparing to bloom, an event that would fundamentally rewrite the rules of terrestrial ecosystems. But the legacy of the Jurassic is not confined to the past. It is woven into the fabric of your present reality. The birds that sing outside your window are the direct, living descendants of the Jurassic theropods. Every sparrow is a small, feathered dinosaur, a biological echo of Archaeopteryx*. The continents you live on are the fragmented pieces of Pangaea, drifting along the trajectories set in motion 180 million years ago. The mammals that dominate the planet today, including you, are the heirs of those nocturnal survivors who learned to live in the shadows of giants. To stand before a Jurassic fossil is to confront the sublime. It is a realization that our human history is a flickering candle against the blazing sun of deep time. The Jurassic lasted for 56 million years. It was a stable, functioning, thriving world that existed without us, without our cities, without our wars, without our consciousness. It proves that the Earth is not ours. We are simply its current tenants. The atoms in your body have cycled through this biosphere for billions of years. Some of the carbon currently knitting together your DNA may once have been part of a fern crushed under the foot of a Brachiosaurus*, or a breath exhaled by an Allosaurus* on a cold morning. We are connected to this deep past not just by scientific curiosity, but by the very matter that composes us. The Jurassic is gone. The inland seas have dried up, the mountains have eroded, and the monsters have turned to stone. But in understanding this era, we gain a perspective that is both humbling and empowering. We see that life is resilient, that it adapts to catastrophe, and that it finds a way to endure through ice and fire. The story of the Jurassic is the story of life itself, grand, terrifying, beautiful, and persistent. Sleep well, time traveler. The giants may be gone, but their world is the foundation of your own. And in the silence of the night, if you listen closely to the wind in the trees or the call of a distant bird, you might just hear the faint, lingering echo of a time when the Earth belonged to the Titans.